Hey, it's Juck.
I was going to ask about that, but I didn't get a question today. Instead, you got to listen to Ryan Day talk about, not being able to watch Kyle McCord play for Syracuse last weekend. So that's what you got. That's what you got out of the beat this week. And I'm sorry for that, but that's the way it goes. It's out of my hands. So maybe.
But Dillon, is he at least happy for Kyle McCord that he's playing good? Is he?
Yeah, no, actually, he just blew everybody's doors away and said no, he hates that guy and he wishes that he would have left sooner and that he wishes nothing but the worst for Kyle McCord. That's actually, no, of course he said, he's happy for the guy and wishes nothing but the best. I will say, and
let's get it. And I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback.
The truth is Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those.
You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country.
That means we've got.
And welcome into Juckonbucks on a Wednesday. Appreciate y'all so much for joining me. It is hump day on a bye week that they don't want us calling a bye week, much like they don't want us to call it the 2-minute warning. I will not comply. It's a bye week. They want us to call it the improvement week. At least that's what they're calling it. And it's pretty clear from Ryan Day's words in his press conference that they are not taking it easy this week. There's no need to sit and lick their wounds. They're building on momentum. They're trying to get better. He said every other team's out there playing and getting better, and we are going to be as well, which is why it was pretty funny when one of the local TV guys said to him, how is he going to allow guys to take advantage of NIL opportunities this week on their week off? Ryan Day, having none of it, shut it down and said, we reserve that kind of stuff for the off season. More on the whole beat stuff in the entire press conference later with Dillon, because as you can see, our dude is fired up. Dillon joined us for our normal 10 to 15 minute wrap up, and we went a long time, and he's got some really good stuff. We talked about a lot of different topics, and you won't want to miss that, including a shot of Dillon and Brent Musburger talking about him when he was young Dillon at a Buckeye game, which is pretty cool. I put that in there later for you guys to check out. I think it's awesome. Anyway, Dillon hopped on at Dillon Davis 56, Dillon, if you want to follow him on Twitter. And I asked him the hypothetical question that's flying around Twitter. I first heard it from my former favorite Ohio State football journalist, Doug Lesmerises, who's really no longer an Ohio State football journalist, but always good for a good hypothetical question. And it's a good hypothetical question when the results are spread out like 52 to 48 from the answers in a big sample size. And there was, and that's what they are. So here's the question. We are now 2 games into seeing Jeremiah Smith as a wide receiver for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Marvin Harrison Jr., one of the greatest wide receivers ever to come through Ohio State, Bolitnikoff Award winner in 2023. And the premise of the question was simple, but I'm going to make sure that there are concrete stipulations here. So we're going to say that you are a very powerful man or woman, and you are the general manager for the Ohio State Buckeyes. And in your role, you can get a lot of things done. One of those things you can get done is make a choice on your roster for 2024 and just 2024, no future. At the end of the year, whichever guy you choose is gone forever. You get this year, this 1 year, and you get to choose either freshman Jeremiah Smith on this team right now or senior Marvin Harrison Jr. on this team right now. The premise of the question sounds insane, almost offensive to ask, to think about. In Marvin Harrison Jr., you've got a tireless worker, a dream to coach. They had to mandate to him that he was not allowed to be in the Woody anymore after hours by himself because he would just go in there and work him. So they wanted somebody in there to essentially monitor this guy to make sure he went home and went to bed and would stop working. Shows you the kind of work that he was putting in, the extra work. We learned all about the Monarch machine, the new age jugs machine from Marvin Harrison Jr. working that thing. 155 career catches, 2,600 yards, 31 touchdowns. Marvin Harrison Jr.'s skill set, he's a pretty good route runner, amazing body control, great hands, really good speed, pretty clutch. His physicality leaves a little bit to be desired in the form of blocking downfield. Contested balls, I don't think that's his best trait. go over JJ's traits. I don't think he is as seasoned of a route runner, but I think he is more sudden. He's not as crafty as Marv, but more dynamic. I don't know if his body control in terms of getting his feet in bounds and things like that is quite as on par with Marv, but his hands, I think, are better. I think he comes up with catches that nobody else in football can. I also think he's faster than Marv. I think both have similar crazy work ethic. I think they both inspire a ton of confidence in their teammates. But really tough with Marv's experience. If you take Marv, you know what you're getting. You know what the ceiling is, though, too. I don't know what JJ's ceiling is. And I almost feel like in this offense right here, with the surrounding cast that you got, I would take JJ. And it sounds insane to say that, but I just think the ceiling for JJ, I feel like he's almost as valuable as Marvin Harrison Jr. right now in this very moment. And it's slowly going up every week. So even if it levels off, do I think he's going to regress? No, I really don't. I think what you see is what you get with him, and it just keeps getting better. So I would go with JJ, which just feels crazy to say. So I put a poll up on YouTube earlier on. Let's see how many votes we got. Let's see. Wow. Okay. I wasn't expecting this. So I thought you guys were going to think I was crazy. Wrong one. I might as well read that. Blair Kruger, when Michigan crushes Texas, the Skunk Wolves will be number one. Right on, Blair. 290 votes so far. Jeremiah Smith with 62% of the vote. Marvin Harrison, 38. Wow. Okay. I was seeing 50-50. Apparently, the Juckonbuckers, who tend to be one of the most tuned in audiences in all of Buckeye media, I know that for a fact. I've run studies. They choose JJ by 62%, which is very telling to me. If this group of folks is choosing JJ by 62%, you can take it to the bank that that is the correct choice. So there it is. Amazing, though. Isn't it really? I mean, it really is amazing when you think about it. Everything about this guy's amazing, but that's truly amazing. And I wonder what the folks who wouldn't believe us when we were telling them that he is that good, like he's the real deal. I wonder what they think now when they see that, because they think we absolutely worshipped Marvin, way, far overrated him. So over the past couple of years, I've been hearing a lot of calls to upgrade the stadium, the shoe. Things are falling behind our competitors. You look at all the other 100,000 seat stadiums, Michigan, Penn State about to do a big renovation, Neyland at Tennessee, they did a big renovation. Georgia, they just did some work. They did some work at Alabama. Nebraska, big light show stuff at Nebraska, Tennessee, Alabama as well. Georgia as well. Sound systems are all excellent. Same with Clemson with their upgrade of their sound system. Just all this kind of stuff to make the game day atmosphere feel more like a concert, I guess. You want it to feel like more of an event than just the game. That's what they're going for. That's what they're trying to do to compete with things like the TV experience being so much better than it used to be. Being able to watch multiple TVs and track the games. I mean, there's a lot of things that are good about watching the game at home anymore that just weren't great in the past. And you're competing with that at a lot of places, not so much at Ohio State, really not at a lot of those places, but, they're just putting the money back into the stadium and making it cool and keeping up with the Joneses. Chosen not to do that at Ohio State. And we've heard about this for years, and things like the scoreboard. Can we at least get the scoreboard renovated? The sound system, concessions, bathrooms, things like that. Luxury seating, the facade of the rotunda, which has some kind of shoddy concrete repair work that looks like it could be, touched up a little bit. Just a lot of different things that folks have wanted some money spent on in the stadium. Well, Ross Bjork comes along, and he's talked about doing quite a few things, doing a renovation at the Woody, and they just did a little bit of the locker room stuff. They're going to do some more here coming up soon. Among the other things, he talked about the stadium on 97.1 the other day, and he announced that they are going to be making a new suite on the east side of the stadium or club called the 1922 Club. And the 1922 Club is going to be a lounge-like atmosphere with a restaurant, and it is going to be $4,500 for a membership to the club. There's going to be a place where you can watch the game. You can come 3 hours before the game, stay 1 hour after the game, all inclusive with food and beer and wine. Open bar or cash bar, but the beer, wine, and food is included in your $4,500. You get a personal concierge. You get a dedicated entrance to make it in there. So the first step in what they're going to be doing with the stadium is this exclusive club here. And when you think about all the things they could have spent the money on in the first step of putting money into the stadium, that's probably the last one I'd pick. But I guess it's good to see that they are putting some money into the stadium. I don't know that does much for anybody but the really, really wealthy folks who are going to, be springing $4,500 to get in there. But, more money, more revenue, that's a good thing as long as, they're putting it back into other areas. And you definitely like to see them, at least at the minimum, do the scoreboard and the sound system, I suppose. The atmosphere is often criticized at Ohio Stadium, and understandably so. There are times, a lot of it has to do with scheduling, I think. There's just a lot of clunkers. We play in a conference where historically, maybe not so much anymore as we got some more competition, but a lot of the home games every year, if you got 6 home games, generally 4 of them you're a favorite of 20 points or more. And that's just not always conducive to a loud, raucous environment. Add to it, now you play way less night games, and that adds to it too. But I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Are you interested in going to this thing? Does it even have a view of the field, or is it in the bowels of the stadium? There's no clear picture that shows me anywhere you can see the actual field. It says a lounge-like atmosphere. Does that mean sitting in the lounge and just watching this game? I'm looking out the window. I see trees. I want to see the field out the window at least. I don't know. I mean, I'm paying $4,500 for my ticket. Is that a whole season? I'm not sure. So that's all the details we have now. Take a look at Nebraska. This is their game day atmosphere for a night game. I used that video to explain to my kids what Nebraska football was. We were talking about blue bloods, and they didn't. What do you mean Nebraska? Yeah, they were really a power. They were a force in college football, and to them, it sounded like I was talking about Tulsa. So showed them that, and then they understood. Okay, it's a place clearly that is very passionate, ton of support, spends a lot of money. But the truth is, you kind of got to do that at a place like Nebraska. You got to do that at a place like Tennessee. You don't got to do that at Ohio State. And they have chosen not to up until this point. And to a certain extent, I can understand it. And I do enjoy things like the band more than the speakers playing music. No doubt about it. Not about what I want, though. So I understand if they need to pivot away from that to get more energy or get a bit of a younger crowd. I get it. And I'm cool with evolving with that. Not cool with changing the name of the stadium or a patch on the jersey, but I'm cool if they want to do that. I get it. But I want your thoughts on this guy. Now, let's go to our buddy Dillon, see what he has to say about today's press conference with Coach Day and Jim Knowles. Take it away, Dillon. All right, so we did get to talk to Ryan Day and Jim Knowles today. When I say we, I don't mean we. I mean he did. Dillon did. Dillon Davis joining us once again from the Delaware Gazette. My man, welcome on, buddy.
How we doing tonight?
We're all right. We're all right. I just watched a couple of press conferences, and I got some questions for you about those press conferences. Seemed to be a whole lot of folks today that I didn't usually hear from. A very highly attended press conference today with Coach Day. A big point of emphasis this week is this is not a bye week. We're not calling it that. Not even calling it an open week as some other people do. We're calling it an improvement week.
Yeah, I mean, it's well, and I think a lot of that has to do obviously with the whole, it's kind of one of the things I was most interested in. Most people would say like, oh, you're going to ask about the bye week and whatnot. I get that, but like, this is different. This is a different situation, this kind of bye week. And so, they're calling it the improvement week, and rightfully so. I hope that they're really going after it this week, because this isn't your standard bye week where, hey, you got to put an emphasis on rest and getting these guys, recovered, with 2 bye weeks and this being in the 3rd week of the season. It's got to be, full bore. They've got to, full speed ahead to continue what they're doing. So I guess that's what led to the whole improvement week and whatnot. And so I take that as they're going to continue to go hard this week. They're not doing anything Friday and Saturday, so they'll still have their opportunity to rest. But for the week practices like they would in a normal game week, they're going to go hard at it, and good for them.
Yeah, I didn't get the impression that Coach Day was too thrilled with having to take a break, trying to build some momentum here. And I mean, if we're being honest, the way they spread the snaps out so well, I would say that most of the guys on the team, those 2 games that we played, they probably have practiced several times harder in practice and in camp than they have in those games. So no need to really stop. And it doesn't sound like they're too excited, but nonetheless, we did hear somebody ask if Coach Day is making some concessions for them this week to go do some NIL deals in their off week. Oh, it was great. Your colleagues are something else, bro. Anyway, both Jim Knowles and Ryan Day were asked about Denzel's targeting ejection. I went on about that in the show yesterday. I don't understand something, and I get that if we're going to call that targeting, whatever, we can call it targeting. I disagree with the call, but those are judgment calls. But what else could be a judgment call, and they could do this, is if they used to have, remember the severity for pass interference?
Yeah.
It was a 5 or a 15. Why aren't we doing this with targeting? Like, we can clearly see when someone's coming in with malicious intent, whatever you want to call it. When somebody's coming in trying to hurt somebody or really crossing the line, it's so much different than when 2 guys have already committed to their angle and they click hats. It happens. I don't understand why we're throwing guys out. And what I really don't understand is this is not a unique position. And I feel like everybody shares this position, but nobody does anything about it. The rules committee meets every year. Have you heard anything? Is anybody going to address this?
No, not that I've heard as far as addressing it goes. And I mean, quite the opposite. This targeting thing continues to evolve, obviously, from where it started to where it's at now, with the whole crown of the helmet thing and whatnot. Look, going back to the targeting thing, and I took some blowback on Twitter for this, and that's fine. People disagree and whatnot. I think a lot of people, especially in the moment, obviously, on Saturday, and I get that, we're confusing their hatred for targeting in general with like what the call was and what the rule states. I said on Twitter that by rule, that's technically targeting. Now, if you want to talk about him getting shoved, I guess that opens up, another, angle, but I just don't think at all. No part of me believes that shove led to him putting his helmet down completely like that. So by rule, I thought he initiated contact with the crown of his helmet. I heard a lot of people talking about, well, it wasn't a defenseless receiver. That doesn't matter when it comes to the crown of the helmet. It just seemed like a lot of people either were confused about what targeting is or just hate targeting in general, which I do too. I hate the call. All I was saying on Twitter was that rule does exist. I know that speed limits exist. So if I go 65 out of 25 and get pulled over, I can't tell the cop well, speed limits are stupid. And he'd be like, oh, well, you're right. Like, so like, the rule is the rule, and it's terrible. It sucks. And targeting is just in general, it's just like we've gotten so far away from what the intent of the rule was. And I'm all for trying to improve safety in the game, but like we're so far removed from that being the thing. And it's just ruining players' games. It could potentially be impacting teams' games and seasons because of it. So no, I haven't heard anything that's, to suggest that it's going to change anytime soon. Frankly, I would be shocked if it does change anytime soon, because I don't think that they're willing to regress to what the feedback that, the blowback that they would get from like regressing to something lesser than that would suggest like that they are like, it would open up questions to why did you do it in the first place? And is that not important anymore? Like that, so it's one of those things where I think it's just too far gone. I wouldn't expect anything to change with it. I totally agree with you about intent. Look, I've had this conversation before as well with like trying to interpret intent too. And I agree with that, but that opens up a whole nother can of worms where you've got real live human beings trying to tell, players and coaches and sidelines, like what they think was somebody's intent. And if you think it's bad enough trying to, argue some of these targeting calls as they are now, wait until, he tells Ryan Day that like, no, I think so-and-so was coming in with bad intentions. And so that's why I flagged it as such.
It's a fair point.
Yes. And Ryan might just blow his lid.
Speaking of Ryan blowing his lid, Ryan is just now realizing that not calling plays, he's able to argue for 2 or 3 plays with the referee. He's able to look people in the eye. He's able to go pop in and check out what the defenders are doing, help on special teams. And it's almost as if John Q. Buckeye fan was right 4 or 5 years ago saying this guy ought to give up play calling. He might be really good at this.
Yep. No, I totally agree. I actually thought it was a really good question. I believe it was Stephen Means from Cleveland.com who asked that question. And I actually really enjoyed the question. I'm not going to lie. I wasn't entirely sure where he was going with it for half the question, but like, we've all been there before. But when he finally got to the point, I thought it was a really good question, just an interesting question, because it's true that like you see a more animated Ryan Day sometimes and whatnot. And his response was very telling too, that, well, for one, he has more time to be that, like, it's tough when you're on offense and, a call happens that you hate, but you've got to get the next play in. Like, there's no time to, lament that, and then you try to maybe get your shots in during, during a timeout or whatnot, or stoppage on the field. But now he has full reign to go do that. So that was a really good question. And I enjoyed Ryan's response to that. And like you said, like any head coach, would want to do that and fight for his guys. And certainly we all know that gamesmanship's a thing and trying to work officials. There's some legendary head coach who were just, A+ at doing those things and whatnot. And how much it's worth, if it's worth one call, if it's worth one call, then, it was worth doing. So, all those little things that helps Ryan be a head coach and just helps the team. So, I enjoyed the question and his response for sure.
Did you hear what Geno Smith said today? Obviously, Jeremiah Smith's cousin, but, so a little biased, but he came out and said that he thinks Jeremiah can be the best ever. Yeah. And it kind of earlier on in the show, I asked a question. It's a hypothetical question that I've been hearing going around Buckeye Nation, and I want to ask you your opinion on it. So you are just the omnipotent general manager of the Ohio State Buckeyes. And for 1 year, this year, we're not looking to the future. You just get one guy this year, this team right now. Do you want freshman JJ or senior Marv?
Wow. Freshman JJ. Yeah. Freshman JJ. I think that as this season progresses, I think that there are a lot more ways to get JJ involved in the offense that we'll see that maybe like they wouldn't have done with Marv. Now, in fairness, like if you were telling me that like you were just going to put, if Chip Kelly didn't exist, if Ryan Day was calling plays again, if you're telling me it was last year's offense, as was, I would probably take Marvin that in this particular offense. I would probably take JJ in that because I think JJ is a little more versatile, and I think we'll see that. And I think Ohio State fans will see that as the season progresses as necessary. Look, you're talking about splitting hairs there. Like, I mean, what we're talking about, some would say the greatest receiver in Ohio State history, and I think he's certainly up in the top 3 to 4. And we're talking about a guy who has all the makings of being that guy, but obviously still have to see it and whatnot. But I am that comfortable in saying that, like, unless JJ has injury problems throughout his year, like if he plays 3 seasons like Marvin did, he'll be the greatest receiver of the the millennia of the 2000s. You know, and I hate to compare eras, going back to, you're a Chris Carter guy. I hate comparing eras and whatnot. So I don't want to, compare these guys and whatnot, but I think Jeremiah Smith in 3 years, as long as he stays healthy, and just assuming that the quarterback plays there, but I'm pretty confident in saying that it will be confident in saying that it will be there. I think Jeremiah, there's no reason why I just think that much of him that he'll shatter records and whatnot. So splitting hairs, but I think Jeremiah is probably a little more versatile than Marv is, and so I would probably lean Jeremiah there.
Yeah, I'm actually with you. It just almost like I almost feel. I don't know, like when I first pondered the question, I started feeling like, am I ignorant? Am I just like a prisoner of the moment? Like, what is something wrong with me? Because this sounds like a ridiculous question. And then I saw a big poll on it. It went 50-50. It was almost dead down the middle. And when you got a question like that and it's dead down the middle, number one, that's an excellent talking point. So you talk about it on your talk show if you got one. Yep. And number two, yeah, it's a coin flip, man. You're good either way, usually in a situation like that, but I would lean JJ too.
I think your point about being a prisoner of the moment, obviously we all are guilty of that, to a certain degree at certain points and whatnot. And you have to guard against that. But I truly don't think that this is a prisoner of the moment thing with Jeremiah Smith, just because of, going back to what we talked about like, talking about this guy since he got to Ohio State in January, just knowing that this was coming and whatnot. This isn't a like, oh, wow, like, we thought he was good, but he's this good and whatnot. Let's see if he continues to do it, during Big Ten play. And it's a game, as the stakes ramp up and whatnot. No, this was like, everybody knew this was coming and whatnot. He was that good. So like, I think it's he's an established star already. I mean, people might not consider that, like, how could you for, as a true freshman in week 2, but like, in my opinion, he's an established star in college football already. So it's not that crazy or a prisoner of the moment.
Yeah, it's been pretty fun seeing it. And we knew it wouldn't take long for the rest of the country to recognize, oh, they weren't just blowing smoke. This guy really is that dude. And it hasn't. I did hear a question today that I wanted to ask you about because I thought the answer was pretty interesting. They were talking about playing the depth and how they are going to continue to do that and maintain opportunities for that. Basically, when the competition gets better, Ryan Day said that he knows Larry wants to do it at defensive end. It'll probably be position specific. He thinks he wants to do it at D tackle with Hero and Caden. And then he said, rolled right into the quarterbacks. And he said, quarterbacks. I've got to get these quarterbacks meaningful reps. He didn't say Devin. He said quarterbacks, which I took to be Devin and Julian, meaningful reps in a game sometime here, which makes me kind of feel like quarterback 2, not so cemented in his head.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting too, and we didn't get any sort of follow-up because why would we get a follow-up to a question that actually warrants a follow-up? So I thought it was interesting too because like I thought Devin played really well on Saturday, right? So like and I know you want to get more, you want to stack film because the more you have to evaluate, obviously the better it's going to be for both parties. I thought Devin played really well, so I took that more of like the guys behind Devin, maybe, kind of going back to what I asked Ryan last week, about is like, getting Julian more time on the field, getting him more reps to evaluate to make that assessment in terms of QB2 going forward and whatnot, because I thought, and you still want to get Devin reps and they still need to get him reps. And it's still the most important thing behind Will Howard is getting Devin, time. But I took that more as like getting these guys behind Devin, reps, what that means for Julian. I think we all know what that means. Ryan would never say as much, but I think that we all know what that means. Even behind him as well, Lincoln, and look, you're not going to find too many situations where you get to play 4 quarterbacks in a game. They were able to do that last Saturday, and that's great and whatnot, but to think that like they need to find ways to get all those guys, that's not realistic, and he knows that. Obviously, if I know that, he knows that. So I really took that more like a Julian saying thing, like they want to get Devin Brown more time on the field and more reps to evaluate, and hopefully for everyone's sake continue to build off of what I thought was a really good performance on Saturday, but also get Julian more time on the field and just see like truly where he's at, like what is what he does on the field in a game matching up with what you think you already know about him or what you're seeing in practice all the time, or is there still a little bit of a kind of a block there where like I know he threw the touchdown pass, but it was wide open and he still got to hit it, and he did, but whatnot. But like get him some reps where like, see what he does on 3rd and 8, some of those kind of situations where it wasn't just, a quick hitter that goes the distance and whatnot. So that's the way I took it. I think he wants to get Julian in those situations where you can really truly evaluate, what a guy's made of and see if it matches up with what they think they already know about him.
Yeah. Yeah. I took it to mean the same. I had a little segment I was doing on the show yesterday about my inability to kind of let go of super highly rated guys sometimes when maybe they just don't got it. And they don't turn out to be what I thought they were going to be. One such guy is JB, and returning kicks seems to be still the same errors that we've always seen out of him. Ryan Day was asked about Jayden Ballard returning kicks today, and what he said didn't give me too much confidence that he is going to be doing that much longer, as he said that he graded out as a gold, which is really high in the program, in the offseason, and they gave him the opportunity to return kicks, but the number one thing that he's got to do is take care of the ball, and they're going to be vetting options, and they believe in who he is, but at the end of the day, we got to evaluate and make sure we're doing the right thing, which I think the writing's on the wall there that he's no longer going to be doing that. What's your take on that answer from him?
Yeah, that was very clearly a very measured response from Ryan Day, and what you'd expect. He's not going to go out and throw anybody under the bus. It's just not, who he is. So, I mean, kudos to him for that, because other coaches might. That's not, you would think that's common sense, but it's not. Everybody's seen, the exact opposite of that happen plenty of times. But it was a very measured response. And you have to be very careful with putting words in somebody's mouth, especially the head coach at Ohio State, or reading in between the lines. But I feel very comfortable in reading in between the lines there and saying, I'm not saying they're guaranteed to be a change, whatnot, but to me that response was very clearly like, hey, we're trying everything we can to get Jayden Ballard involved and be a contributor on this team. As a guy who's been in the program for a while and multiple off seasons, sounds like he's done really well in the off season, and trying to reward him for a strong off season. This has happened multiple times. It sounds very, clearly to me that they were just trying to find a way to get him involved and keep him, contributing and give him, a role on a really good football team. And it just doesn't sound like, this being a kick returner is going to work out for him. Again, I'm not going to sit here and say that they do make a change. I don't know, but Ryan was very, clearly, he was very adamant that like they're going to look at it this week and decide if what they're doing is the best thing they could do. So, we'll see on that. If we come out, if we all watch Ohio State on next Saturday against Marshall, and he's returning kicks again, then to me that says like, well, they weren't sure that anybody else, could do it, that they would feel confident in. I find that hard to believe. So I fully anticipate that there will be somebody else back there to return kicks for Ohio State, next Saturday, because I find it impossible to believe that there's not somebody else that they think like, okay, well, we feel comfortable putting them back there. So that's my take on it. But
two questions about CJ Hicks today. One to Ryan Day, one to Jim Knowles. And it was about moving him down to a line of scrimmage player. Ryan Day said it's been discussed. Jim Knowles said it's not been discussed, but always in the back of his mind. Then was asked, what needs to happen to get it in the front of your mind? And his response was, both of their response was, well, we need him in the linebacker room right now. And Knowles kind of went even further and said the depth up front at the edge is great. I don't think that's really what people mean by putting him. I think they want to see a specialized package for him. Yesterday in the show, I said I just don't see him doing that. I don't see the necessity for it. And I think this might be kind of to my point earlier with JB, a lot of people just not wanting to let go of the notion that he can be the next Micah Parsons if they put him in some kind of package like that, or Baron Browning, and another guy who comes through here that doesn't quite reach his full potential. But sometimes you're just the odd man out in a defense, and there's really nothing you can do about it. What are your thoughts on CJ Hicks as a line of scrimmage player and Knowles' response there? Because it doesn't seem to me like that's going to be something he's going to be working on anytime soon.
No, and I also don't think that when people say that they would like to see him up at the line of scrimmage, that they're talking about him just being a pure edge rusher and that being his role. I also think that people are, suggesting, like, why not find a way, a la Baron Browning, the way that they, underutilized him or misused him, find, a way to get him, involved in rushing the passer, a few times a game and whatnot. But it doesn't sound like they're going to do that at the sake of just finding a way to CJ, just find a way to get CJ involved. That they're not going to do that just for the sake of doing it. So it sounds like he's going to be a linebacker. Ryan was very clearly, said that he thinks CJ needs to be a linebacker. They need his depth there. And Jim's right that they don't need, particularly, they don't need a whole lot more depth, on the edge. Obviously you could always use more, but if they move CJ to just being more of a pure edge rusher, who are you taking off the field, and rushing downs? And that's so it's the same result as that. If they try to do that, he's got to learn the particulars of being an edge rusher, purely an edge rusher. So who knows how long that takes, and B, even if he gets it down to the point where you feel like you could put him on the field, he's still not going to see the field, because he's not going to, they're not going to take some of those other guys off the field. So he's just kind of stuck, in no man's land right now. He's been passed up on the depth chart. We saw that on Saturday. And I'm not dogging CJ Hicks. I still think very highly of CJ. Is he going to be the guy that everybody thought that he was going to be when he signed at Ohio State and he was Captain Buckeye and leading that recruiting class and showed up at, Columbus? Yeah, probably not, at least not in terms of productivity and, and producing at Ohio State, probably not. Now, look, again, like Baron Browning's made a really nice career for himself and, in the NFL, being utilized the way that, maybe he always should have and whatnot. So who knows what he goes on to do it. But it sounds like CJ's probably stuck in no man's land where, like, he's not one of the 3 best linebackers on the roster right now. And look, that's not groundbreaking. We try to say that on Friday on Saturday after week 1, and last week just confirmed that. But he's not going to be an edge rusher. Like, they're not going to just, try to find a way for him to do that because we're not even sure if he could do it, and B, they're not going to take people off the field for that. So yeah, he just sounds like he's just kind of just a guy. That's maybe, hey, look, Ryan loves to talk about depth and, how long of a season is. Maybe, who knows, maybe he's thrust into being a key piece in that defense, at some point. I don't think Ohio State's defense will be better for it, frankly, but maybe he still has a role to play at linebacker, for better, for worse. Who knows? But as of right now, with the way that defense is humming, it just seems like he's kind of an odd man out right now. And that happens at Ohio State. It happens to great players all the time. And it's not saying anything about their talent. It's saying everything about the talent of the guys who passed them on the depth chart. So,
and that's just it. It's there's so many really good players. And I feel like if he was a mid 4-star when he came in, there would not be this much conversation about this. But, that's not the case. Anyway, we've seen Oregon's offensive line really struggle. One of the things I noticed in watching their all 22 the first game this season, they alternate a lot of players on the offensive line. And I heard Dan Lanning in his press conference. I thought it was just that game. He said, no, this is something they've always done, which I just found to be odd. Not a practice usually done, rotating a bunch of spots on the offensive line to keep guys fresh. Usually it's, a unit you want to be working together and building chemistry throughout the year. Today, Ryan Day said that, talking about rolling guys in, Austin Searveld has played good enough to get reps, and he wants to be rolling him in. They got to figure out, how they're going to get that done. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are, don't put any thought into it whatsoever, because it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Okay. At the end of the day, Donovan Jackson comes back and he plays left guard for Ohio State, and Austin Searveld's not going to play unless he's thrust into action for injury or something happens to one of those guards and whatnot. That's just the reality of it. You're not going to see Ryan Day in the second quarter of a game, in a 14-10 game against Oregon or whoever, sending Austin Searveld in there because he thinks Austin Searveld deserves some reps and he's going to take Donovan Jackson or Tager Shabola off the freaking field. It's just not going to happen. It's just dumb. So, like, this, the whole idea, and you're right about Dan Lanning. You're absolutely right about that whole concept. I didn't really know that, to be honest with you. I can't say I've ever noticed that. That's absolutely moronic, and obviously Dan Lanning's forgotten more football than I would ever know. So I'm not saying, but like, just the whole principle of it. For one, we've always talked about this. Everybody rolling, positions is great. It's great. But you have to have the depth of talent there to do it. You can't be rolling guys and taking and being lesser as a team because of it, right? So if you're talking about rolling offensive linemen, you've got to be, credit to Dan Lanning if he thinks he has, 8, 9 offensive linemen who are just equally, talented and capable of doing the job, that he can do that. Because if not, then you're taking away from your offensive line for the sake of just rolling depth at what cost? That makes no sense to me. So Donovan Jackson is Ohio State's best left guard, right? And Tager Shabola won that right guard spot for a reason. So they're not taking those guys off the field because Austin Searbell deserves to play because he played well in Donovan's absence. It's not happening. So, rolling people sounds great. It sounds great, and it's good. That's fine. We talked about it last week. Ohio State needed to find depth, and that's a huge depth piece, and good for them for doing it. If something happens to one of those guards, you feel really good about Austin Searbell coming in the game. That's awesome. But unless something happens, he's not coming in the game because you alluded to it. Of all places along the offensive line, you need cohesion and continuity. And while Donovan Jackson's played a ton of football and Seth McGloughlin's played a ton of football separate from each other, they've never played next to each other before. So you want to talk about continuity, you better get those guys in there and start, working together, as little 2-man units there. It's just not going to happen. And, it sounds great. And I know coaches love, depth talk and, building depth and, giving guys the right to play because they earned it and all that stuff. And it sounds great and whatnot, but Austin Searbell's not playing in a game unless something happens for the worst. So,
yeah, we've got to hear quite a bit this week, and what we were talking about on the post-game show on Saturday night, just how good Seth McGloughlin has been, how good he was in game 2, how much he has elevated kind of the ceiling of what this offensive line can do. Since then, we've seen a whole lot of love thrown towards him, including today at the press conference. Ryan Day went on about what a leader he was, how good he is at making the coaches themselves feel calm. Said sometimes me and Fry are getting on him, and he just gives us the look like, we got it. And it makes them feel better. And obviously, if he's doing that to a coach, and that's all you want to feel as a leader, your man's got it, right? Okay, you got it. Let me feel at peace that you guys got it, and they get it done. I'm so excited for this guy, the way he got crapped on, the way we got made fun of for bringing him in 5 days after that game. And go figure, he's just excellent, and he's awesome, and he's smart. Everybody likes him. What a signee, man. We look at this transfer portal class. That was a cool, okay, we got an offensive lineman. If he can't snap, we'll move him to guard, whatever kind of signing, right? It was okay. And now it looks like a great one. In fact, you didn't need a running back. You didn't need that. You didn't need Caleb Downs. You needed Seth McGloughlin to be awesome, and he is. And to win a championship, that might have been the most important part outside of Will Howard.
Yeah, without a doubt, outside of Will Howard, you're right. Seth McGloughlin, is probably one of, maybe the biggest thing that's happened to this team. Look, for all the people who, talked badly about Seth and whatnot, the only people who didn't see this as a real positive for, Ohio State and getting better along the offensive line is people who clearly just didn't watch any of Seth McGloughlin last year. They just took the snap issues and the Michigan game and said like, oh, this guy sucks and he can't play. This is supposed to be, the best you have at center at Ohio State. They clearly didn't watch Seth McGloughlin's tape at all or anything whatnot. I made the comment the very first time I ever talked to you, the first show I ever did with you, when we're talking about Seth and we're talking about the transfers in general and talked about Seth. If you go back and watch that Georgia game and the SEC title game, Seth McGloughlin played really well against as good as talent as he'll see either this year or at that point, at the time, played really well. You could see why this guy was a starter at Alabama. And now we're seeing it now. I'm really happy for Seth because I know he probably heard a lot of that noise too. He seems like a really good guy. He's soft-spoken, and you can see why people would really rally around him because he kind of has just that quiet confidence and just like he's always poised. Like, he doesn't seem like a guy who gets too worked up or, too high, too low. And you can just see why guys rally around him and whatnot. But it's a massive get. It was a huge, think about where Ohio State's at center right now. If they don't go get him, maybe Carson Hinsman takes a step forward. I don't know, whatnot, but to shore that up right there, which also, by the way, just adds to their depth, at guard by allowing Carson to go play guard and gives you another guy capable guard as well. So just a massive get, every bit as big as Will Howard, and certainly those two guys are. You're right. Quinshon's awesome. He's a stud. Caleb Downs is a future, first round draft pick. So those are great to have. It's a luxury item. It takes a great team into the you better not screw this up category. But Seth McGloughlin was a critical, a must get if you want to talk about Ohio State running running this gamut here and potentially win a national title. That was a must get, not a luxury item. That was a must get kind of addition. And it's proven it right now too. So
yeah, that's the way I'm seeing it too. Ty Hamilton, much like his brother, who kind of turned into a fan favorite his last year, getting some big time praise from Jim Knowles. Not everybody might see it, but he's just dominant up there. And listening to Jimmy the Grinch, I just love it when he's praising somebody, because it comes out the way it sounds is not like much of a compliment, but man, he's calling this guy dominant up front, saying when you got a guy up front in the middle that can make tackles, it just makes everything so much different for us. And at the back end, he's probably the guy on the defense with the least fanfare. And I just like to point out that he also is an excellent football player and a hell of a leader, and everybody loves him.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's the reality of playing at Ohio State, is that, sometimes you just get overshadowed by some other guys, and some of the other guys get, more fanfare. His brother was the same way. Like Devon Hamilton was one, I still say he's one of the most underrated football players in the last, 10, 15 years at Ohio State. Dude never got enough credit for just how good he was and how disruptive he was. And I mean, he's having a good NFL career as well. And it looks like Ty's on the same trajectory there. So, he's fantastic. I'm glad that, Jim Knowles kind of gave him some of that, that attention, or obviously got asked about it and whatnot, because you just don't hear a lot of people talking about it enough. But he had his best game of his career to date, on Saturday. He was fantastic, on Saturday. So, this is a good time to talk about him, because, he really kind of, announced himself to some degree on Saturday.
Did you hear Ross Bjork come out and talk about the night? I don't know how we haven't ever talked about this, you and I, but a lot of Buckeye fans are really irritated at the condition of Ohio Stadium. They want money put into it. They want the rotunda, the concrete fixed properly. They want a new scoreboard. They want pyrotechnics. They want some luxury seating. They want a lot of money put into the stadium. Look around and you see, I don't know if you caught Nebraska on Saturday, but they've just got this amazing light show and music and sound, and it just looks like a big concert. Tennessee now looks like that too. Georgia, Alabama, Ohio Stadium, really far behind in those kind of departments. And a lot of folks want to see some money put into that. Well, it was announced earlier that, I don't know if this came out yesterday or today, but I just saw it. The 1922 Club, they're making, and it's going to be a speakeasy style exclusive restaurant. It's going to be a restaurant 6 days a week. Not on game day. On game day, it's going to be a lounge for $4,500. You get yourself a spot in the lounge. You get free beer and booze and all you can eat food. I don't know exactly where the vantage point is of the field, but it's got its own exclusive entrance, private bathrooms, and this is what's going to be going on. It's going to take place and open up in 2026. And I'm just sitting here thinking, man, I've been hearing this for a while. I like that Bjork's getting things done, but the first thing you get done is something that's very exclusive and just for a very select few can afford to do something like that. Kind of bothersome to me. The first thing isn't something for everybody to enjoy. And for me, the biggest thing you can do at Ohio Stadium is to do something to improve the environment of the game and get the crowd more into the game, because that's my biggest irritation with our home field advantage, is that it's not the fault of Ohio State fans. It's kind of it's what happens when you've just been so dominant for so long, and everybody that comes in is a 20-point underdog, except for 1 or 2 games a year. That's just kind of how it goes. But they've shown at other places that these kind of things actually do help. Not that I'm some big lover of all this music and I'm a tradition. I like the band, you know what I mean? But it's not about me. Anyway, what are your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, I did see that. Rest assured, this isn't a Ross Bjork thing. This is something that's been in the works before Ross Bjork got here, so he might have taken it to the finish line. But this isn't something that he just drummed up in his short time in Columbus and got it pushed across. So I totally agree with you about for all the things that Ohio State fans have voiced their displeasure with about Ohio Stadium and just the game day experience at Ohio State. That if you're going to put money in, I don't know what the I can't speak to what the the details of the renovations will be, how much it'll cost to do this and whatnot. I'm not even sure exactly where it's at in the stadium. I assume it's going to remove part of B deck to do this, I would think, or is it back in the concourse area? I
don't even know if it doesn't specify if there is a clean line of sight to the field or if this is like in the bowels. I don't know.
Yeah, so but I totally agree. Scoreboard, we've seen so many different stadiums doing the light shows now with their lights and whatnot. And certainly Ohio State's lights do not have the capability to do any of that stuff. The concrete and the rotunda and things like that, I get that. So there's something about it to me that just says this is still the horseshoe that I grew up going to. You know what I mean? It's just especially the rotunda part of it. That's still the original, the original the building. Something about that. If I don't know what that looks like to upgrade that or to renovate that. I just hope that the rotunda never stops looking like the rotunda, because it's just that's just part of the. I know they added the stained glass stuff, years ago or not, but I just hope they don't do too much to that. But in general, I totally agree with it, especially the scoreboard. The scoreboard's the biggest thing. I mean, look, Ohio State's scoreboard is frankly, it's archaic, which sounds crazy but that's just, and it's archaic. And so something needs to be done there. And whatnot. But Ohio State should always be looking to tweak its game day atmosphere, because to be honest with you, I'm not very high on Ohio State's game day atmosphere. I just think it sucks, to be honest with you. I think that's partially the atmosphere that the university fosters, and I also think that's partially on Buckeye fans. To be honest with you, I just think that in general, the only thing that makes Ohio State tough to play at is because of the teams you're playing against. That's what makes Ohio State tough. Now, with the caveat that in big games, Ohio State, the shoe still jumps, it still gets rocking. I understand that and whatnot, but just in general, I just don't think the atmosphere is all that great, and I don't know how much of that can be fixed. That's part of that's part of dealing with the stadium that's 122 years old, or 102 years old. Excuse me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 102. Yeah. Yeah, 102 years old. So that's just part of, I don't know how much that can be fixed and whatnot, but in general, I do definitely agree with you that that's great that they're doing this stuff and finding ways to kind of improve the atmosphere and just the experience of coming to the horseshoe. But it's not for the regular person. It's not for the people sitting up in C deck, who are truly there to watch the Buckeyes, go win a football game, and that's the only reason they came to the game for. That's not for those people, and that's unfortunate.
Let me elaborate. I want to get a little further in on that, because I think that's an interesting topic. And just so everybody knows, you and your dad and your family have been season ticket holders, travel with the team. You've been to almost every Big Ten stadium to watch the Buckeyes play from the time you were a kid. Just so everybody knows, that's the perspective Dillon's coming from when he says that. I want to know, when you say you think it's the attitude that the university fosters, what can you speak a little more on that?
I just think that so much of what Ohio State has become on game day caters to, and I know this is probably a popular opinion for some people who, feel likewise. I think everything that Ohio State does for its game day atmosphere, or what it does inside the shoe, on game days, is catered to, an older generation. And I think Ohio State's so far removed from what plays today and whatnot, and I think they can, and I think they know they can, because in the same ways that the Red Sox could at Fenway, or the Cubs could do at Wrigley, or all these stadiums, whatnot, they know they can, because at the end of the day, people are going to show up and cheer on the Buckeyes. They know they're going to and whatnot. But there's a really interesting dynamic going on right now, as we all know, whether it be ticket prices or just the in-home experience of watching a game and whatnot, where it's more competitive than ever, for people's eyeballs, whether and getting them into the stadium and whatnot. And I think Ohio State's going to soon find a day, if they don't start to improve that atmosphere and find ways to draw people, not just Ohio State football, because that'll always be a draw. Yes, I know people are going to show up and pack out in 100,000 seat stadium to watch the Buckeyes, whether it's Western Michigan or whether it's Michigan. I understand that. I get that. But in terms of just the game day atmosphere, I think Ohio State, I don't want to say they don't care, but I think that they just know that they can afford to be kind of, ho-hum about this, because at the end of the day, they have the draw that everybody else in the country, all these places that are doing these, and I call them gimmicks, and I don't mean that in a negative connotation, but all these people that are doing these gimmicks are trying to find ways to sell tickets, and Ohio State knows that they don't need to sell tickets, because they have the showstopper, they have the headliner, in the football team. They don't need to do anything else. But again, like I said, the dynamic of today, and all these different things that are coming factoring in. When I was going to games and we were buying season tickets, it was pretty. You never thought twice about it. Like, I mean, of course, you'd rather be in the stadium for the game. Like, why wouldn't you? And I still feel that way today. Don't get me wrong. But now I can at least say, like, somebody says, like, why would I want to go do this and that? Especially at Ohio Stadium. Why would I want to go use the bathroom in a trough in the men's room? I think the troughs are still there. I assume they were, as of a couple of years ago. Why would I want to go do that when I could just go to my own private bathroom and, and buy my beers for a quarter of the price and have a big, beautiful TV? I respect people's opinions on that. It wasn't like that when I was growing up. It was, of course you'd want to be, if you could afford to be there, you were going to be there. It was just a night and day difference between being there and watching it on TV. It's not like that anymore. And there's just way more competition for that. Ohio State better, realize that, while Ohio State will always be the draw that it is, there's a lot more competition now than there used to be, and I just don't think that Ohio State respects that right now. Maybe things like this is a sign of the things to come, and they do. I don't know. I will say one additional thing, that while I think that there are a lot of things Ohio State could do for Ohio Stadium that would be just great for the fans and the people that pack that stadium, I think it's far more important for Ohio State to invest in renovating or completely just building a new practice facility, redoing the Woody altogether. I think that's far more important for the program than things at the stadium, in my personal opinion. So I don't know in terms of funding for that, if they could do both at the same time, or if they have to do one first and one not. But I think it's far more important that Ohio State upgrades its practice facility than doing significant improvements to the Horseshoe, in my personal opinion.
Do you think that's maybe just because you spend so much time there?
Well,
are you being selfish, Dillon? The rest of us might want a new stadium.
That's a natural question, right? That's a fair question. And in all honesty, I spend a lot of time at the stadium too. And Ohio State's press box is lacking in its own right. There are far better press boxes I've been to on this beat in my time on this beat than Ohio State's press box. So I don't get me wrong. I'd like to see that press box renovated too. What Michigan did, frankly, to its press box is just tremendous. Like, just a beautiful, beautiful thing that Michigan did in the big house to that press box. I'd love to see something like that at Ohio Stadium or something similar and whatnot. But no, for Ohio State fans, I'm saying, facilities matter to these recruits and whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
And seeing some of these things that other programs are doing, again, I worry that Ohio State falls behind a little bit in that regard. Again, Ohio State's going to recruit fine, and the program will sell itself. But when it comes down to splitting hairs with some of these big time recruits, I don't think Ohio State's winning a whole lot of facilities, competitions. And so
I asked James Laurinaitis, how do you sell it? Because it's clearly, it's not. And he said, we like it like this. Yeah. It's a little gritty. Yeah. And I was like, all right, you can sell that. Right. He can sell that. You know what I mean? Not everybody can sell that.
It's also a lot easier to say that about, we like it and that it's gritty when that's your reality. But for these kids that are coming in there and haven't committed anywhere yet, that's not the reality. So good luck selling that to them when they have a choice of this or some of the other places. So,
yeah. All right. So I've kept you way over. I did want to ask you, any other thoughts, any other takeaways from today's press conference, and any other thoughts you got before we wrap up tonight's show?
Oh yeah, I've got some heavy hitters for you guys.
Oh, let's go.
So for all you people who didn't watch the press conference and whatnot, look, I preface everything I'm about to say by saying that, like, our job as beat writers is to be kind of a medium between the fan base and the program. What we think the people want to know and what we think is important for the people to know. We're kind of that medium to spread that information right now, whatnot. So I want to share with you three of the first things that got discussed in this press conference today. Ryan Day warned about keeping the team in rhythm and not being worried about NIL during the bye week, because Ryan Day was asked one of the first questions about NIL on the bye week. Just asinine stuff to me, just crazy to me. But it got worse from there. Somebody asked Ryan Day if he got a chance to watch Kyle McCord play And I want everybody in Buckeye Nation to know that Ryan Day did not get a chance to watch Kyle McCord play over the last 2 weeks, because I don't know if you know this, but the head coach of the Ohio State University did not have time to watch a former quarterback who transferred out of his program as he gets ready for a game on game day. He did not. But we took time in the press conference to ask that question. So I think it's important all Buckeye fans know that. And I also want you to know, Buckeye fans, that culture is important, because Ryan Day was asked how important culture is to his program. And if you didn't know, culture is a very important thing in a football program, in a business, in your family. Culture matters. And I want you to know that Ryan Day believes that culture matters. So just so you guys know that, that's what we talked about in this press conference today. And again, that's our job, to let you know what you guys want to know. And I'm sure you were all wondering if you got a chance to watch Kyle McCord. So now you know the answer to that. With that being said, my biggest takeaways today is that Ryan Day kind of confirmed what we already thought and we talked about on Saturday, is that he was really impressed with the offensive line, the depth, how many of the guys they played and the quality with which they played. I mean, he named off a few of the plays that we talked about on Saturday that we obviously everybody saw. And I'm really excited about the offensive line and where it's going right now. I just think the individual efforts that I saw on Saturday, and I didn't need Ryan to tell me that, but just hearing Ryan Day, say it just speaks to, the fact that he felt the need to pinpoint that and point that out. And so that was a big takeaway for me today. I also thought that, to talk about the tablets was really interesting. And not that we didn't know that it was going to be a big thing or that it would be really beneficial, but the way he talked about, having the tablets to give real feedback to help them with their coaching accuracy, what they're telling these guys, that's a pretty cool thing too, because, if anybody who's ever played sports before, especially in football where there's a lot going on in a given play and whatnot, you come back to the sideline, your coach is chewing your ass because you didn't do this or that. And you're like, no, I did. You just didn't see it. It happens. It happens and whatnot. And I can only imagine how much that happens, obviously any football game, over the course of a game at Ohio State. But the fact that they have this tablet that has real time information about a drive that they can come back to and say, this is what I thought I saw. And you're right, I did see this. And then we can coach it up instead of saying, I think this is why this play didn't work, or I think this is what you didn't do right. But you have nothing to go off of. And it just kind of gets lost in this guy saying you didn't see it. Yes, I did the right thing. Or, the coach is saying no, I'm sure that you didn't do this. I think the tablet thing's really cool. And hearing Ryan Day talk about it and giving them that real feedback, that real-time feedback, I think is an awesome thing. And that's not just an Ohio State thing. I just thought it was really cool in general that here we are in 2024 and finally they have this, ability to do this. And it just seems like such common sense, but unfortunately it took them until now to do that. But I think that's really cool that they have that and just the quality of information that they're getting. And it's just going to, lead to a, better football team. So those are just two of my big takeaways. I mean, there was nothing that was, groundbreaking. Then again, other than, Ryan Day talking about Kyle McCord. So there was nothing, and it was bye week stuff, typical bye week stuff. And, it was cool to hear.
Improvement week, Dillon.
Yeah, improvement week. So it was cool because I was curious to see how Ohio State approaches this, as I mentioned, with it being this early in the season and being one of two bye weeks. I was curious to see, to hear him talk about how they might have.
Dillon's mad at me because I asked him what his question was ahead of time and I made fun of it because he told me it was about the bye week. And I said, that's boring.
Yeah. Right. Well, so it actually wasn't going to be my question anymore. For anybody who doesn't understand, I didn't get a question off today for whatever reason in the press conference today, which is why I went on a 5-minute rant about the questions that did get asked today. Because I want to ask about something that people actually might care to hear about, but instead we got the questions that we did. So that's why I went on the rant. But and I'm not mad or anything. I'm not salty, just a little bit salty. But yeah, I wasn't even going to ask about the bye week anymore. I was going to ask about, whatever happened to Caleb Downs, the running back, or the Caleb Downs, the offensive playmaker, if that's still a thing or whatnot. So I wanted to ask about that. And, if that's still something that we'll see, if if that's something they're still working on, or maybe that's a break glass in case of emergency kind of thing or whatnot. I was going to ask about that, but I didn't get a question today. Instead, you got to listen to Ryan Day talk about, not being able to watch Kyle McCord play for Syracuse last weekend. So that's what you got. That's what you got out of the beat this week. And I'm sorry for that, but that's the way it goes. It's out of my hands. So maybe.
But Dillon, is he at least happy for Kyle McCord that he's playing good? Is he?
Yeah, no, actually, he just blew everybody's doors away and said no, he hates that guy and he wishes that he would have left sooner and that he wishes nothing but the worst for Kyle McCord. That's actually, yeah, no, of course he said, yeah, he's happy for the guy and wishes nothing but the best. I will say, and to credit, I guess, in some way to the person who asked the question because they got this answer. Ryan Day had a really good quote about quarterbacks, and part of the recruiting pitch being that Ryan, talked about, and we know this as a quarterback guy, that he's very, fond of, quarterbacks and, and developing quarterbacks. And he takes great pride in developing every position, but certainly quarterbacks too, because Ryan is a quarterback, at heart. And he had a great quote about recruiting quarterbacks. And he said that, like, he tells these guys that if nothing else, and I'm paraphrasing here, he said, if nothing else, you're going to get developed at a very high level and it will pay dividends later, either at Ohio State. We don't want you to transfer, but if you do transfer, the development you get at quarterback at Ohio State will pay dividends for you wherever you go. And you're seeing that right now, whether it was, you saw it with Joe Burrow, you're seeing it right now with Kyle McCord. And it was a really good quote. And certainly not only is that, Ryan Day saying that, but he has the film and the example after example to back it up and whatnot. So I'm sure that
track record
probably plays pretty well in the living room when telling guys like that. The reality is, look, we know that transfers are going to happen, and they're a real part of college football. If you find yourself in a position to transfer, I promise you'll be better for coming to Ohio State in the time that you did. Quinn Ewers, perfect example. That year at Ohio State, it was probably very, very valuable to him, and getting him ready to play at Texas. Not saying that, Texas hasn't done anything with him to push him to where he's at now, but that year at Ohio State, very valuable. So that's a heck of a recruiting pitch for Ryan and Ohio State to have with these guys, with the examples to back it up. So those are my takeaways. Sorry to rant. You brought it up. So
all good, buddy. Hey, I might as well just call you the co-host for tonight, because we went for an hour and we're going to run the whole damn thing. Dillon, thanks for joining us as always, buddy. Folks, if you got any questions for Dillon for the next press conference, maybe some good ideas. He had a crappy one tonight till I checked him. Then he switched it and change it to a good one. So leave them in the comments, and we will talk to you guys later. Juckonbucks and Dillon out.
Thanks, guys.
All right, guys, that'll do me for. Please help me out and check out our buddies Columbus Apparel Co. If you want to get your Johnny Hockey shirts, again, our guy Tom, he was actually on the news today. Check out our guy Tom. This was pretty cool. So Tom was on the news getting interviewed today. And here is the photo of Tom from his interview on NBC4 for the Blue Jackets community rallying behind the Goudreau family. And if you look carefully and you look at Tom's shirt there, you can see what he's wearing. He's got a Juckeye shirt on. That's right. Take a look at Tom. There's our guy. Columbus Apparel Co. Always repping. Love those guys. Also want to show you, since many of you have asked, we had a little... My wife gets a real kick out of the dogs when they annoy me, and many of you have asked to see the dogs. She happened to send me this video when I was pounding on the wall, telling her to shut the dogs up earlier, because something new happened with the dogs today. They're redoing the floors upstairs, and they're kind of locked in the living room while they work. So she sent me this banger of a video, and I figured I'd let you guys see it. They've never howled before. That's Dad on the gate, his son behind him with the little baby howl. Kind of cute, I guess. I don't want to hear it, but kind of cute. Anyway, that'll do me for, guys. Appreciate y'all so much. Tomorrow, we'll go over the games of the week. We got some good ones coming up. Not as many as last week, but we're going to have some excitement nonetheless. I will talk to you then. Juckonbucks out.